It's 5 minutes with me.
Happy day to you. This is Marko. You're listening to 5 Minutes with Marko. Okay, today we're going to talk about two fancy words I want you to consider. As a church, we've been fairly obsessed with concluding, resolving, and being right for at least a few hundred years. You probably heard the Greek word orthodoxy, which means right belief. That's been our target in many life stage ministries like children's and youth ministry. I'm not anti-orthodoxy. Orthodoxy is good. 3 cheers for right belief and all that. I'm just not sure it's the most developmentally appropriate focus for work with teenagers. Really, it's a perfect focus, developmentally speaking, for preteens. More on that in a bit. After orthodoxy, our secondary focus has often been more about behavior. Sometimes the word orthopraxy is used. If you want to get all fancy about it, that simply means right behavior. Do I want the teenagers I work with to bring their external choices, i.e., behaviors, into alignment with Jesus and the kingdom of God's instructions and values? Of course. It's just that I'd like to suggest two new words that embody more developmentally appropriate focuses for young teens and youth ministry in general. And just maybe these will be helpful for those of us who are far from being teenagers, since, after all, the gospel is about process and transformation more than arrival or destination. Before we get to the two new words, here's a little developmental framing that could help us. This is a modified version of something I learned decades ago from a Christian psychologist named Stephen Glenn. He said, these are my words of his concept, birth to 3 years old are all about discovery. 4 to 7 years old, roughly, all about testing that becomes the focus. And 8 to 10 years old are all about concluding. Seriously, 9-year-olds are some of the most concluded people on earth. And then puberty shows up and turns all those wonderful conclusions into Swiss cheese. Abstract thinking introduces new questions, and those preteen conclusions are no longer good enough. So the process starts over again. 11 to 14 years old. It's a whole new world, and discovery is once again the dominant process. 15 to 20 years old, in our era of extended adolescence, testing returns. You don't have to spend much time with teenagers to see this reality in play. And then the 20-something years become a decade of concluding. With all that, I want to introduce you to two words I made up. At least I don't think they're real Greek words, but then I have no idea. Okay, I gotta remember even how to pronounce them. Orthoanakálypsy, orthoanakálypsy, and orthodokimí. Orthoanakálypsy and orthodokimí. Fancy, right? Okay, here we go. Anacalypsy, according to Google Translate, is Greek for discovery, finding out, breaking through, detection. So orthoanakálypsy is right discovery. I'm suggesting that developmentally, this should be our focus with young teens, with middle schoolers. Right discovery should have an even higher priority than right belief and right behavior. And dokimí is simply Greek. I'm sure I'm saying these wrong, by the way. I never took Greek. Dokimí is simply Greek for testing, trying out, proofing, hypothesizing. So orthodokimí, at least in my world of word invention, is right testing. Ministry with teenagers roughly to 15 to 20 years old should focus on right testing as the highest priority, since that's how God wired them to process the world at this life stage. Let me flesh out the first of those, right discovery, a bit as an example. Did you know that the word seek is found 143 times in the Bible? It's a massive biblical theme held up as a component of righteous living. And with that in mind, first, help your young teens embrace a journey of discovery more than a destination. Truth is life-giving. Jesus told stories that confused people and left them hanging. They went home thinking about what he said, and living truth was born out of that in their lives. That's all because truth isn't dormant. It's not dead or lifeless. It's generative. Second, help your young teens understand that doubt is not the opposite of faith, nor is the foe of faith. Frederick Buechner said it this way: whatever your faith about God, if you don't have any doubts, you're either kidding yourself or asleep. Doubts are the ants in the pants of faith. They keep it awake and moving. End quote. For older teenagers, introduce lots of opportunities for right testing by providing both experience and dialogue about what they believe and why. Say these fancy words with me. Orthoanakálypsy and Orthodokimí. Somebody could email me and tell me how I'm saying them wrong, even though they're made up words. Now, feel free to forget my made up words and instead prayerfully consider how you can introduce opportunities for right discovery and right testing into your ministry with teenagers.
The Youth Cartel Podcast Network.